Good morning, everyone. My name is Ellie. I have been invited here, and I'm really grateful for the invitation to come and talk about my experiences of Notting Hill Carnival and other carnivals.
Thank you.
My name is Clifford Jones. Like my aunt, Ellie, I am very pleased to have been invited to talk about Carnival. My mother is Rosa Noel Jones, who is actually a noted Carnival pioneer in Notting Hill, and I have a few memories I'd love to share with you today.
Thank you. I'm Sivani, and I live here in Somerset. I live in Glastonbury. These are my family. And yeah, been involved in Carnival since I was a baby, and I met Susan a couple of years ago, and she's been trying to get me involved in one of the events that she's been running about Windrush people and how they impact England, and this integration that happens and the enrichment that happens from the culture that was brought over. And my father was part of Windrush, and my auntie Ellie, and yeah, so it's an honour to honour my ancestors and be here and speak of Carnival.
Thank you, Suzanne. My name is Suzanne Savage, and I'm chair of Somerset African Caribbean Network, but I'm kind of here with two hats today because I'm also a heritage sort of associate for the Glade Centre of the project called A Place Called Home. That project is funded by the Lottery Fund. So I shouldn't really, thank you, I shouldn't really forget to mention that. Okay, so we're going to start off, and we thought that we'd actually start by, I'll get my board, it's been one of those days, isn't it? And it's very warm. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about what Carnival is and its origins. And Tanti, do you want to start? Do you want to talk about a little bit what you think Carnival is?
Well, Carnival or Mardi Gras comes from is the Catholic religion, which many of the Caribbean islands, the predominant religion is Catholicism. And on that day, you get rid of all the stuff because you're going to give up things for Lent. So it's a big festival. You eat and drink everything that you've got in the house, because for the next 40 days you're going to be giving up or some kind of luxury. And so that's where Carnival came from. And there are some big carnivals around the world, but because I'm a Trinidadian, I think Trinidad is probably the biggest and the best. And therefore the Trinidadians who then migrated to the UK, and many of them settled in the Notting Hill area, myself being one of them. In 1960, I came to England. I was 6 years old, and I lived in Notting Hill, just around the corner from the Portobello Road. And so I saw the beginnings of the Notting Hill Carnival, and took part in some of the early celebrations, which was mainly, as I said, by the Trinidadian community that lived in Notting Hill at that time.
Yeah, great. So I can add to that a little bit. My family member came over, I think it's 1952. His name is Russell Henderson, a very famous Trinidadian who was not only a steel pan player and brought steel pan music to the Notting Hill area, but also a very well-renowned jazz musician as well. Sterling Betancourt, you probably know Sterling Betancourt, came over with TASPO, the Trinidadian All-Stars Steel Orchestra, or whatever it's called. TASPO came over for the Festival of Britain, and pans were probably heard for the first time, would you agree? Maybe at that time. But certainly Russell and Sterling and others were playing pan in the Notting Hill area. Russell was differently with his sort of band and everything like that got some very prestigious jobs because he was playing at hunt balls and things like that, and debutante sort of dues and what have you, and so really prestigious gigs that they had. and you know, there was a real, you know, how do you say, interest in the music, and it was quite novel. And you know, clearly back in those days, it was pan round neck that the guys were playing. And he gigged down to this part of the country as well. So some, you know, being here and in Frome, which he used to call Frome when he first knew of Frome, is of interest to me with the fact that, you know, he has been in these places in Somerset before and liked coming to the country, which of course, you know, guys do. So, you know, that's a little bit about my family sort of experience and where they were. My father is Jamaican and now passed, but he also lived in the Notting Hill area. Whilst he was a musician, he didn't play pan. So yeah, great. But you know, that's our kind of starting points, I guess. You know, like that. So where do we want to go now with the story? Do we want to talk about actually being in Carnival?
Okay, just a little bit about the actual steel pan. That came from the oil fields in Trinidad, and where the workers started to hit the drums using the oil drums. And now the steel pan is now recognised as the most recent orchestral instrument, and it is now part of the Trinidad coat of arms, which previously had Columbus's ships. That's been taken off, and the steel pan is now on the coat of arms of Trinidad.
So it's a national sort of, you know, sort of thing, isn't it? It's a national symbol.
Yes, yeah.
So we, you know, from its, you know, maybe humble beginnings, it's now this big thing. And yeah, I guess also it might be useful to say that some of those early sort of, you know, guys early on were teaching pan in schools, you know, so which is something that is, we were talking just now about that, and how pan in schools is certainly down this neck of the wood, either just not happening because it doesn't happen, or a place like Bath, I know from my granddaughter's experience, is that they've had that taken away as something that will be in the school. And so there's a tension and a wrestle to get that back in place, and so young people get the opportunity, you know, particularly if you're an African Caribbean heritage, to learn how to play pan, but also bringing new people into it, because many of the bands on the road now are actually very mixed, aren't they? And sometimes can be, you know, less black people and a lot of white people. I think some of the bands, young bands from Plymouth, you know, are actually very, very young, and band leader is a white lady or whatever. And you know, it's not quite what it was, and it's great to see that the music has changed and that more people are getting involved, more people are getting the opportunity to learn to play pan.
Yeah, I'm a retired head teacher, and my school in East London, in Tower Hamlets, we had a steel pan, and we had a steel pan teacher, and my school was 90% Bangladeshi, but we still had a steel pan there. Through me.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank goodness.
Pushed through.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to be. It has
Yes.
to be pushed.
Yeah. And the children enjoyed it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a group. It's an opportunity for people with the ear and the talent, and who want to put the hard work in. It's a group involvement that becomes a sort of a. It's like any sort of, like a brass troupe or a drumming troupe. It becomes that, and it becomes, and you become friends with people you wouldn't otherwise be friends with. So that's a great thing for a school, and obviously it's great for parents to see their children up on stage learning something that that takes them away from something that's necessarily academic but more artistic. So
That's great. So I'm just thinking about when Carnival started, and you know that's contention in our community. But you know, I'm of the belief it's 1966. You know, sort of, you know, you may say something. Let's not go there. Something entirely different.
I think that's about right.
You know, and the history of it. You know, from Claudia Jones, the indoor carnivals. Claudia Jones being, you know, a wonderful lady. And you know, having the indoor carnivals, St Pancras, Town Hall, etc., and at a time when people were coming over from the islands and what have you, and some of those people who were dancers or musicians, actors or whatever, were all part of this sort of, you know, wonderful televised, BBC televised sort of event in St Pancras Town Hall. So she is called the Mother of Carnival. Do look Claudia Jones up. Her life is over and above what we're talking about now, and her achievement in her short life, Trinidadian, but for sure she is known as the Mother of Carnival. Claudia Jones and Ronnie Laslett and Russell Henderson are all celebrated in Windrush Square in the Grove in Portobello, have plaques dedicated to them, and we were there as a family for that unveiling several years ago. So it's been, you know, well recognised. I mean, the histories can get a little bit skewed, and people have different takes on the stories and things like that. But Ronnie Laslett and sort of asking Russell Henderson to sort of go and do a little sort of with his steel pan. He took the band around, and it seems that Carnival was born at that time. I think most people agree with that.
I think so.
Yeah. So you know, and then Leslie, it was a guy that came later. I can't remember his name, call his name, but certainly he moved things forward. It evolved over time, and everything like that took off in a different way. And of course, now the entirely different situation. Even when we talk about costumes, how costumes have changed so massively. But you know, for sure that was seemingly the origins and how it started.
The first carnival that I actually took part in and actually wore a costume and went on the road was 1971. So it was established by then, but they didn't have the big floats as you had now. It was obviously much simpler, and my band was playing sailors, and I was on board the SS Goulburn, and I was a waitress in the restaurant, and I would have been 18 at the time. I'm giving away my age now. But I was dressed in, I was telling Sivani about it, and she was looking at me now thinking, I was wearing denim hot pants and denim knee-high boots. Yeah, so it was
pain. I'm feeling the pain.
Yeah. It was a different time. It was far more covered up actually now. Than now, but it was quite shocking at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right.
Good fun.
So that is a really great time. You were going to say something?
Well, I just wanted to add in with this feeding into the very early days, and what I've heard is that it kind of came about in response to race riots
and murder of and there was the murder of, is it Kale
Cochrane?
Yeah.
Antigone Carpenter.
So it was a kind of like it was a response to really celebrate our culture and come together in a way that was nourishing for the community, right?
Yeah, it would
Form of
heal
solidarity.
the wounds that had been driven by that murder.
Yeah.
So that it would seem like it needed something positive for us to focus on in order to get through that murder. And from that comes this. It's what you want, if you had to plan it, it would never have come about. Unfortunately, it came from a tragedy in order to make people realize how much they actually have and how much they have built and how much they have contributed, and for the rest of the world to see it. And that's how it becomes something greater than what it started. It's more like a force of nature now, rather than an event. And it seems something more vital now. And as time goes on, it seems it's even more vital to show whatever's going on around. Communities do actually get on with each other and do talk to each other and can celebrate together.
Yeah, and can be creative together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
we all have a share of music. We all have a share of joy. We all like to laugh. We all like to smile. A lot like to dance. It concentrates on the positive aspects of our being rather than the negative ones.
Absolutely.
And it comes together. It's a massive thing that people have. Even if you don't go to Carnival, you have a version of it inside you, and you do it to yourself, and you have it with you. And if you go to Carnival, you carry it with you for the rest of the year, and you can't wait to do it again. So.
It's great. No, I was thinking of, I think it's Claudia's quote, wasn't it? Something about washing the dirt out of our mouths or something or other in response to the, the Cochrane, murder of Cousin Cochrane, and, how she wanted to do something, and then I've got a little quote there in case, it should come out because we can't leave this talk without this. So Claudia Jones is the slogan, people's art is the genesis of their freedom, which I think is apt to mention. Yeah. Did you hear it? No. I can see that there's a lady at the back that didn't hear it and wants to, so I'll repeat it. So this is Claudia Jones. A people's art is the genesis of their freedom. And of course, what we're talking about with Carnival is all of those things as well around, history and what have you, and how we would have, in times of slavery and everything like that, people would have dressed up in costumes and sort of made merry and sort of in their times that they had together, able to draw on some of their, origins and some of their music and some of their expression and things like that. And I think that probably all here feel that they were able to tap into some sense of that at Carnival time. It's a very strong feeling, and I think you're right to say that it's maybe hard to explain what that feeling is. It's all manner of things that go through my head around, being with the community, being with family, being in the band, an amazing feeling and a spiritual feeling too.
I would see more people, I would see more of my relatives at Carnival than I would see them at Christmas or New Year. And I'd see them on the road, and I'd see members I hadn't, because they'd come from all around to come to this one event, and then pass through my father's house, and I'd see them, and they're on their way to Carnival. Because we lived so close to Carnival. They'd stop off, just set down their bags, because you don't want to take bags to Carnival. You don't want to do that.
No,
you divest yourself of things. You go down, and when Carnival was over, they'd come back, they'd have a drink, and then go. And like I said, that's most of the time, I'd see far more of them that day, or over that weekend, than I would at Christmas, or New Year's, or any other time, or birthdays, or anything like that. The only other time I'd see them like that would be a funeral or a wedding. That's how huge Carnival was for us. And then I'd go to Carnival, and the only time I'd ever see them was at Carnival, some of them. I'd meet cousins I hadn't met before.
And I suppose I could add to that as well, that people would jump in the band who are actually maybe coming for representing somebody else. In other words, you know them to be relatives and everything like that. The person's not there and paying pound that year or whatever, but they're coming to, and maybe coming from abroad, because in terms of the diaspora, we know that the people went to America and settled, and they might come from the States and be part of Carnival and everything like that. So a real sort of mishmash of people and everything like that, sort of coming from different places, crisscrossing and sort of just having to be there in that place at that time. Shall we move on to personal stories?
Yeah.
We've got some personal stories. It has been pretty personal so far. I think it's going to get a little bit more personal, which is good.
The ones we can say.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's.
Okay, born in '65. My mum was always proud of telling everyone that he's been to every carnival in a pram and being pushed through. So I was born in '65, so it started in '66. I have been to every single one. Of course, I don't remember the first ones. But being Trinidadian, soca and carnival is, you get fed that with breast milk. It starts from it's part of your makeup and becomes part of your material as a person. And once people hear you're Trinidadian, oh, carnival. Carnival. So, yeah, carnival. What do you know about carnival? Well, yeah, I know about carnival. You end up, it's what you don't know about carnival. It's about the people, it's about the spirit, it's about, and everybody takes a part that they like. What I like about carnival is people take the part that they like and they run with that. It's many, many different things to many different people, and it's all okay. No one's more carnival than the other person. You all have a place to play, piece to do. I have seen carnival made. I've seen it made in people's houses. I've seen it made in sheds. I've seen people finish work, come late and try to finish something on their costume. And they could only stay an hour, and they put the feathers, they take each individual feather and put a bit of glue, and they've only finished like this much. And they've had to go, because they've got to go and cook, and then they've got to go to sleep, and then they come back the next day, and they come back again, and they finish a little bit more of their costume. Once they've seen the costume they want, they pay the money, they get, right, here's the tools. We want to know if you're going to be the one making your. A lot of the time, people who are wearing their costume were making at least a good part of their costume back in the day. And it takes over your life for a while. And you see the dedication that people put in, and then on the day, when they put it on, they become a different person. It's a transformation. Once that costume is on, they're a different person, and you don't want to stop them. You don't want to get in their way. You get out of their way, let them enjoy themselves. And then they come back the next day to do the same thing again, but only even more intense. And you see it, and you're filled with the music, and you're filled with the smells, and maybe you'll have a drink, or maybe you don't drink. Maybe you'll eat, maybe you don't eat. A lot of people forget to eat. They don't forget to drink, but they forget to eat for the day. And then they go, and they come back, so I haven't eaten all day. You haven't eaten? Okay, well then eat now. They eat, and they still want to go again. And it becomes an energy. You take part in it. You flow through it. You become part of it, and then you flow out of it. But it remains with you, and it works its way around. And you see everybody doing their own thing, and it works so well. But I don't know how it is. You have so many different elements, so many different people coming from different places, all doing their own thing in the same way. It must be like what heaven is. Everybody goes there. Everybody's an individual, but they're all part of the same thing. It must be my idea of heaven. As an individual, you are distinct, but you're also part of a greater whole. And that's what carnival seems to be. If you want to talk about memories, I remember end of school, last day of summer, finish, and then it's that 6 weeks holiday. And for us, that's a run into carnival. And so you see the music changing from either soul and more reggae to more soca and more calypso, and you're hearing it more. And as you're walking in the streets, you're hearing bands rehearsing. Now they're rehearsing during the day. Before they were rehearsing late in the evening, because obviously people do work and stuff. So, but the kids, as a kid, I'm now on the street and I can hear different bands rehearsing, and they're trying to be secretive about what sounds what tunes they're going to play. So they'll play a tune, but that's not the tune they're going to play in the panorama. That tune's under wraps. They've got a tune that makes it seem as though that's the one they're going to play. That's not the one they're going to play. So they're very clandestine, and you go to the panya and you can hear them playing, and you can hear them rehearsing everywhere. And this one's not on time, so he's got to put more work into it, and it becomes a community thing, because you can just hang out and you're wondering, how is this all going to come together? How does this actually going to work? And on the day it does. It all comes together and everybody knows their part and everybody knows their role, and everybody, it's like pulling a ship. Everybody pulls in the same direction, and they get it, and they get that ship into the water, and it sets sail, and it's fine. My memories are mostly of having great times hanging out with people, seeing wire work of people, and I thought, I could do this, And somebody sat me down with wire cutters and wire, and you know, the second time I cut my hand. And I went, so yeah, that's right, you cut your hand. And they're doing it without gloves, and they're just snip, and they're measuring by visual. You're not following plan. They see the costume up there and they go, right, we're making that. And you're thinking, okay, so they're going to draw it out or something. No. They get a mannequin. And then they'll do it on someone. And that person's got to stand there. And they'll measure it out. And you think, I haven't seen anything. Come back 3 days later, and you'll be amazed at the work they've done. And you go, well, this is genius. How are they doing that? How do they know the measurements? How do they visually? They've got the acuity to be able to make it happen, and to see it become a whole in front of you is an amazing thing. One of the favorite things for me was to see something from nothing just before it goes onto the road. And that's the time you want to take the photograph. You want to take the photograph at the beginning, when they start, and just before they go on the road. And you take that photograph, and it's amazing, because you see that person on their costume, and they're not paying any attention to anything else. They've got a drink, and then when you see them wearing it, and you see the smile on their face, the joy, those are some of my favourite memories.
Can you just talk about, in case it doesn't come out again, about playing maths, because you've taken us to that point of...
Oh, okay. Well, personally, I didn't like playing maths. Right. I didn't. So,
playing maths is when you're in the band with the costumes.
But what my mother got me to do was to facilitate other people. So I'd make drawings of things, and then other people would make them. So my children have played maths. My partner has played maths. Everyone around me, I think I'm the only one who hasn't. Yeah, because that's not my. As I said, everybody takes a part of Carnival that they like, and they do their thing. That's not my thing. I like to watch it. I like to dance with you, but not actually wear a costume. I like to go to different bands and see the different bands play. And if you're in a band, you tend to just stay with that band in Carnival. You'd have to get somebody like my auntie to talk about being actually in.
Before we get to that point, that's really great. Can we just explain that? So we've got mass camps, where the costumes are made. We've got play mass, which has been described there. The word mass, can we elaborate and share with the audience what mass means?
Well, mass comes from masquerade. So it's dressing up in a costume, and the band every year would have a theme. And then there'll be different sections in there. So, for example, when I talked about playing on the ship, you would have like the officers, you would have the engine crew, you would have the restaurants, and the workers and so on. And there'd usually be a colour scheme for each of the sections in the band. Usually people would be expected to stay in their section. So say you had a yellow and a green and a blue and whatever colours, and your costume would be within that. But often people would have a friend who may be in a different section, and they would start to get mixed up. But just before you get to the judging point, because there are prizes for the best band and the best costume and so on, you would have somebody there, usually someone like me. I would be there saying, get into your section, get into there. Before you would have had rehearsals, so that when you got to the judging point, you would show your costume to advantage so that the judges could see you. If you had a big costume, you would want to be able to display it properly and turn and twist around so the judges can see all of the costume, and also all of the other sections would move away to give you room so that you could be seen properly. So masquerading is getting dressed up in a costume which you could either make yourself or someone would make for you. And then you would be on the road. As Clifford was saying, sometimes I can remember being in the bus on the way to Notting Hill and still gluing because we hadn't finished in time. That was a regular thing. When I got involved, when I really got involved in actually helping to turn bands out, was when I did some work with Clifford's mother in Dalston, in Hackney. It was a children's centre, and we used to have a children's band that would come out. On the Sunday was the children's carnival, and then Monday was for the adults. So we would have the children coming out and getting them organised and having their costume. They helped to make their costume, but most of it was made by adults, and we would practice the dancing and how they would show themselves. And we won awards on different occasions for the costumes.
Brilliant. Do you want to go next? So follow your family rather than...
I'm feeling, because we've been talking so much about costumes, would people mind moving for a moment, having stretched?
Well, later, so I haven't been to every single one. But I was there in the pram with my mum, and very much this thing of like, it was when I saw all my Trini family. There's a place actually called Trini Corner where everyone like congregates. I know there I would find everyone if I hadn't seen them already on the road. So this is one of my costumes. I think I was about, oh look, it's just come up on the screen actually. I don't know how old I am. I think like 7 or 8 when I wore this, and I don't remember so well. It's so long ago, but I have a vague memory of being in the mass camp with it being made and helping make things. I didn't actually make but they made it. The adults were making it, just like Tanti Ellie was saying. Like the adults would make the costumes for the kids, but I'm still so impressed by this crown. I just think it's so brilliant. Like if you look closely, you'll notice that these things are those like plastic spirals that go on like books. Like it's really like not, and then there's like bits of chicken wire, and like it's really resourceful how everything was made. And there's meant to be a belt, which is also done like this with the pink and everything. But I think I helped make this crown from what I remember. And I always really liked, I haven't done it a lot actually playing mass, but I like being in the band because you kind of feel protected. And like you're between they do the ropes either side, and you really feel like in that. Well, this costume is meant to be a river. Santiago was saying there's different sections. I know that another section was rain. I'm not sure what other sections there were, but this was the river, and you do feel like you're a river when you're playing mass because you're following the banks of people and being like guided through this this kind of maze, that is the carnival route. Yeah, and this, and like, they're very, I'll show you this because it's quite, so this would be like, here, so you can really like, move it around, and say the skirt really moves. Yeah. So you can imagine when you're dancing with it. And some of my memories, I'm just thinking, is like when you're really playing maths, it's sore feet. At the end of the day, you're like on your feet all day, you're dancing, you're moving, and whilst you're in it, you don't even. I think, Clifford, did you say like you become a different person? Like the energy of the music and just, I guess, just the magic of carnival really like takes hold of you, and that spirit moves within you, so you don't get tired when you're on the road. You're just in it, and then it's not until you get home and you're like, oh my feet, what happened? Yeah, I'll just wheel this. This is how good that we put it on wheels. So this is a real piece of history, this costume. So this is from 1987, I think. There's actually a note in it. This belonged to my godmother, Anna. 1987. I could read it. My darling, I hope you like my old carnival costume. I had it made in Railton Road in Brixton in 1987 when I played maths with Mangrove, and we won. This is a winner's outfit. The little pouch was made especially for me because I had my period. It's a museum piece. I've just noticed it's a bit koshasha, sorry. Nikki, my mum, Saga, my dad, and I had been to Trinidad Carnival in the February when you were just a twinkle in your daddy's eye. Yeah. So this is a very powerful piece for me. My godmother, my mum's best friend. This is her costume. So you might have noticed there's some videos on the slideshow. That's a kind of, I tried to organise it in decades. So there's one image from the 60s, and then there's from 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. So there's a picture of her wearing it somewhere in there. Yeah, and I mean, it's probably not the most politically correct outfit. I think they were Indians. You know, they were probably called it Indians. Then this one is more modern, and this one I made myself. This is from 2010. This is all my sewing work. And actually, I used the wire from this one in this, so it does actually go out like this one does, but it's one layer rather than two. And we were playing Fancy Sailor with Clifford's brother. Yeah, so we all made our own costumes for that particular band, and everyone was a bit different, but all under this same theme. And yeah, and then I've been lent a very different kind of costume by somebody who might show up any minute, actually. So a lot of the more modern costumes are what I think of as like the Brazilian style, which I think comes much more from the Brazil carnivals, like Carnival in Rio. And this is mass produced, it's not like homemade, but that's often what is happening now on the road, that people are just getting these sexy outfits and not necessarily making them themselves, which has a different charm, let's say. But I really have a soft spot for all of this handmade stuff. And some bands, maybe if they don't want to make the effort, they just have a a t-shirt. I think you've got some t-shirts, and then these are actually t-shirts from Trinidad. This is a Trinidad t-shirt. This
band really that I was in, and then I came late to it because my father is Jamaican, as I mentioned to you. He's not Trinidadian, but he was part of the Grove and part of the scene. And so my memories are not of Sivani sort of from a baby and everything, but my children have been brought up, if you like, in a carnival band and turning out for carnival every year. But not for me, sadly. So this is kind of like how we'd roll, and we were going to have a t-shirt, sort of design a t-shirt band thing. We'd customise it to how we would like to, you know. I mean, particularly for some people, they think that's a bit of a, you know, boring t-shirt, isn't it? Let's cut it up, let's customise it, let's take that boring sort of thing off. Let's do the arms and roll them up here and shred them and everything like that, and knot it here and everything like that. Have all sorts of things, making what is a really t-shirt and your shorts or your leggings or whatever just a little bit more exciting. And you can see that I've got my bandana there that I might have worn, or I might actually have it in my sort of thing. So I felt very torn, because whilst I've been around a Trinidadian community much more than I have a Jamaican community, I was tied. So I always, played flag for two islands there, Trinidad and for Jamaica. Whistle's important. So that would be always a thing that we'd pick up walking down from Kensal Rise. Be a little stall there that you can guarantee was there each time, and get some box fresh type of whistles rather than something that came out last year. So that's the way we'd roll. My role was, a flag woman, and maybe Tanti can actually tell us much more about flag women or flag men in Trinidad. As flag woman, I would be at the front of the band waving the flag for the band, which was called Pan Nectar. In some cases, people would wave a Trinidad flag or whatever as well, or sometimes the two. That is important. I mean, it's not just a thing there. It's important to make safe passage for the pans to come through. If you haven't ever been to Notting Hill Carnival, clearly, there's a lot of people. The safest place to be at Notting Hill Carnival, I think, is in a band. And particularly when you're talking about children. There's a lot of care taken to children in their participation in Carnival. So, great to see that. And very often our mass camp was actually in Surda Road by Treadgold Street there, attached to a church, and we would play the music for the children's carnival, for children to come out. So, that was our mass camp, that was our base, but we were also very, very linked to the church. One of the days, on Sunday, Children's Carnival was a special time for me, was to be in church. Not only did they have food, but also, it felt right to be there, and, some of the elders, some of the more proficient pan players would be playing pan in the church, and that was something to see and to witness. It was lovely to have the local community there for church service as usual, but of course it's Carnival Sunday. Sometimes, I think it was once or twice I saw Africans, somebody coming in African dress and mask and everything like that, and brought an element to that church service that, was very different. So, Children's Carnival, we downplay. We don't do anything with sequins or with certainly glitter, beg your pardon. But Carnival Monday, yes, we're in the mass camp. We're all the girls and all the people generally kind of sharing makeup, getting more glitter out. Potentially sometimes having a flag sort of tattoo on our basically, it's taking over the streets of London. It's street theatre. And we are doing the best that we can with the resources we have, to make a difference and to shine, because, obviously, pan on bread, we're coming out, and, the music is one thing, and the special thing, but also the people in the band and everything like that, and the way they're going to actually participate is important too. So, and I suppose one memory would be coming down Ladbroke Grove once when we used to go under the bridge by the station, and the pans playing, and that kind of sound was really something that I haven't seen since we went the other route and sort of went up towards Sainsbury. It wasn't quite the same. But, you know, certainly the route for me, very, very special. You know, different sort of places would have special meaning for me. You know, one place outside the bus depot where you get the mounted police officers, and you also get the guys coming out from the bus depot as well to see their carnival taking place. And then coming down to judging points, you know, and you know, suddenly everybody's getting lipstick out and everything like that, putting lipstick on you, so as you're at that judging point, everybody wants to look good for the judging points. And then coming to Trinity Hill, very, very, very special moment to see. Getting a bit emotional now. To see people there that are part of families, part of the community. People that can't be on the road anymore because maybe they grow older, frailer, and that's not something they can do now. But the opportunity to gaze over to the community, the family,